What happens when brilliance burns out too fast? The 70s and 80s gave us cartoons that didn't just entertain, they defined imagination itself. But some of the best ones? They vanished before they ever stood a chance. From cosmic heroes to high-speed rebels and futuristic families with more charm than airtime, these shows were lightning in a bottle gone too soon, but never forgotten. Let's rewind to the golden age of bold ideas and broken promises. The Mighty Orbots, 1984. This wasn't just another robot cartoon, it was a symphony of style and soul. The Mighty Orbots burst onto screens with dazzling animation, smooth, jazz-infused music, and characters bursting with personality. Created by Fred Silverman and the legendary animation team at TMS, it was meant to rival giants like Transformers and Voltron. But it didn't just imitate, it innovated. The show followed Rob Simmons, a young inventor who led 6 lovable robot heroes each, with its own quirks and powers, forming the unstoppable Mighty Orbots to protect Earth from the shadowy organization Shadow. It blended superhero flair with Japanese animation polish, and every episode felt like a visual fireworks show. So what went wrong? Ironically, its brilliance caused its downfall. Tonka, the company behind GoBots, filed a lawsuit claiming it was too similar to their brand, freezing the show's momentum. With just 13 episodes, the Mighty Orbots faded into legend. Yet decades later, fans still hail it as one of the most gorgeously animated series of the era, proof that sometimes the brightest lights burn out first. Too ambitious for its time, too beautiful to survive. Galaxy High School, 1986. Imagine if The Breakfast Club went to space. That's Galaxy High School, a delightfully strange and heartfelt cartoon that deserved a much longer life than the 13 episodes it got. Created by Chris Columbus, the future director of Home Alone and Harry Potter, the show followed 2 Earth teens, Doyle and Amy, sent to an intergalactic school filled with aliens, robots, and the occasional cosmic bully. Doyle, the popular jock on Earth, finds himself the outcast, while nerdy Amy becomes the star student. It was a clever social reversal that turned high school tropes into interstellar comedy. The animation popped with color, the humor was witty without being mean, and the characters were shockingly relatable despite having tentacles. Critics praised its creativity and charm, but it aired during a brutal time-slot war against network juggernauts. In the end, Galaxy High School graduated too early. Still, its mix of humor and heart made it one of the most original cartoons of the 80s. Years later, it inspired countless artists and writers who grew up watching its short but brilliant run. A cosmic comedy about fitting in, growing up, and realizing the universe can be as awkward as high school. The Roman Holidays, 1972. If you think ancient Rome was all about togas and temples, the Roman holidays will make you rethink it with a laugh track. Created by Hanna-Barbera, this cartoon reimagined the Roman Empire as a bustling modern suburbia. Think the Flintstones, but with centurions instead of cavemen and chariot traffic jams instead of stone cars. The show followed Gus Holliday, a humble chariot operator trying to support his family while staying on the good side of his grumpy landlord, Mr. Evictus. With his wife Lori and daughter Procotia, Gus juggled Roman bureaucracy, cranky neighbors, and workplace chaos with a relatable everyman charm. Debuting in the early 70s, it arrived at a time when audiences were shifting towards superhero and mystery cartoons. Despite clever humor and Hanna-Barbera's trademark warmth, it was canceled after just 13 episodes. The satire was sharp, the animation smooth, and the Roman puns never missed a beat. Though short-lived, The Roman Holidays remains a nostalgic snapshot of a studio trying to stretch its imagination beyond Bedrock and Orbit City. If you ever wanted to see ancient Rome get a laugh track, this was it. A show that proved history can be hilarious if only the audience had stayed tuned. Bravestarr, 1987 to 1988. Before there was Cowboys vs. Aliens, there was Bravestarr, a space western so ahead of its time it left viewers speechless. Produced by Filmation, the same studio behind He-Man, It followed Marshal Bravestarr, a Native American lawman keeping peace on the desert planet of New Texas, where outlaws rode robotic horses instead of stallions. Bravestarr's powers: eyes of the hawk, ears of the wolf, strength of the bear, and speed of the puma were more than flashy gimmicks. They tied directly to his heritage, giving the show a rare cultural depth for its time. He was joined by 3030, his tough-talking cyber horse who could transform into a walking ally armed with stubborn loyalty. The animation was vibrant, the storytelling surprisingly emotional, and the moral lessons about courage, responsibility, and self-control were powerful without feeling preachy. Unfortunately, Filmation was collapsing under financial pressure, and Bravestarr became its final heroic gasp before the studio closed. Despite ending after just 65 episodes, it left behind one of the most thoughtful and visually stunning worlds of the decade. Bravestarr wasn't just entertainment, it was a promise of what cartoons could aspire to be. Smart, soulful, and cinematic. A space frontier where justice met imagination, and both deserved a longer ride. Thundarr the Barbarian, 1980 to 1981. Some cartoons roar louder with age, and Thundarr the Barbarian still echoes through the halls of Saturday morning greatness. Imagine a post-apocalyptic world where sorcery meets science, and you've got Thundarr part warrior, part wanderer, all legend. Created by Steve Gerber, the mind behind Howard the Duck, this series hurled viewers into a shattered Earth of the future. The moon had cracked, civilizations had fallen, and the planet had become a savage mix of mutants, monsters, and rogue wizards. Riding across this wasteland was Thundarr, a muscle-bound hero wielding the sun sword, a glowing blade of pure energy, accompanied by the sorceress Ariel and the mighty Ukla, the Mock. What made Thundarr unforgettable was its fusion of sword and sorcery storytelling with the sleek rhythm of science fiction. It looked and felt like a comic book come alive. The settings, crumbling skyscrapers reclaimed by jungle and magic, were hauntingly beautiful, and the voice cast, including Robert Ridgely and Nellie Bellflower, delivered every line with pulpy conviction. Though it only lasted 21 episodes, it built a cult following that refuses to fade. Critics later called it Mad Max meets Conan the Barbarian for kids, which is exactly right, but Thundarr was also ahead of its time in tone and imagination. Canceled too soon due to broadcast reshuffling, Thundarr remains the kind of show that left fans hungry for a finale we never got. It was gritty, weird, and utterly wonderful a storm that came and went before the thunder finished rolling. Blackstar, 1981. Before He-Man and the Masters of the Universe ruled Saturday mornings, there was Blackstar. Think of it as the missing evolutionary link between pulp fantasy and the neon heroics that would define the 80s. Created by Lou Scheimer and produced by Filmation, Blackstar followed astronaut John Blackstar, whose ship crash-landed on the planet Sagar, a world of dragons, magic, and alien tribes. Armed with the half of a powerful Power Star sword, Blackstar fought the evil Overlord, who possessed the other half. The two halves together could make their bearer unstoppable, setting up an endless cosmic tug-of-war between good and evil. What stood out wasn't just the premise, but how seriously it took itself. The show's tone was grand, its animation rich with shadow and detail, and its music sweeping. Every episode felt like a mini-epic, a blend of Conan, Flash Gordon, and Arthurian myth, topped with Filmation's distinctive flair. Sadly, it arrived just 1 year too early. When He-Man hit screens, it borrowed many of Blackstar's visual and thematic ideas and ran longer, overshadowing its predecessor. Only 13 episodes of Blackstar were ever made, yet they left a glowing mark on fans who recognized its ambition. If it had landed a year later, Blackstar might have been the franchise instead of the footnote. But in its brief life, it gave Saturday mornings a taste of fantasy's full potential, and that spark never really faded. Turbo Teen, 1984 to 1985. Yes, you heard that right. a teenager who could turn into a car. Ridiculous? Absolutely, but in the best, most entertaining way possible. Turbo Teen told the story of Brett Matthews, a regular high schooler who crashed into a top-secret government lab and emerged with the strangest power imaginable. When exposed to heat, he transformed into a red sports car. Cool air turned him back into human form. Alongside his friends Patty, Alex, and his talking dog Rusty, Brett solved crimes, raced bad guys, and tried to keep his bizarre secrets safe. On paper it sounds absurd, and it was, but the show embraced its concept with total sincerity. The transformations, animated in surreal detail, were both impressive and slightly unsettling. It was part Knight Rider, part superhero fantasy, part body-morphing fever dream, and somehow it worked. Produced by Ruby Spears Productions, the same studio behind Thundarr the Barbarian, the series was backed by solid voice talent and a surprisingly catchy theme song. It leaned into pure 80s energy, fast cars, synth soundtracks, and unapologetic fun. Unfortunately, critics didn't know what to make of it. Some found it too strange, others dismissed it as a toy commercial without realizing its goofy brilliance. With just 13 episodes, Turbo Teen sped off into pop culture obscurity. Still, decades later, fans remember it fondly as one of the boldest why not ideas in animation history, a show that dared to be weird and revved its way into cult status. Ulysses 31, 1981 to 1982. Greek mythology meets outer space, it sounds like a dream pitch, and Ulysses 31 made it a reality. This French-Japanese co-production reimagined the legend of Odysseus as a futuristic space odyssey. Ulysses, captain of the spaceship Odyssey, defies the gods by destroying a monstrous Cyclops to save his son Telemachus and their companions. In retaliation, the gods curse him and his crew, freezing them in suspended animation until he can find the kingdom of Hades. From there, each episode follows Ulysses, navigating cosmic dangers, meeting interstellar gods, and searching for a way home. Visually, Ulysses 31 was stunning, clean anime lines mixed with European design sensibility. The soundtrack was pure early 80s brilliance, blending electronic music with eerie choral arrangements that gave every scene an epic, haunting quality. It was one of the few cartoons that felt truly mythic, yet still personal. While the show ran only 26 episodes, it had a long afterlife, airing across Europe, Japan, and the U.S., earning a generation of devoted fans. The reason for its short run: complex international production challenges and a steep budget that made continuation impossible. Ulysses 31 wasn't just a cartoon, it was poetry in motion, a cross-cultural masterpiece that proved kids' television could be art. It dared to bring Homer's epic into the space age, and it succeeded beautifully even if it was cut tragically short. A tale as timeless as the stars it sailed through. Dungeons & Dragons, 1983 to 1985. Few endings hurt fans more than this one. Dungeons & Dragons wasn't just a cartoon, it was a universe that felt alive, dangerous, and filled with wonder. The story began with 6 friends who hop on a carnival ride and are whisked into a fantasy realm ruled by monsters, magic, and mystery. Each is granted a magical weapon and a role: ranger, cavalier, thief, barbarian, magician, and acrobat by the enigmatic dungeon master. Their quest? To find their way home while being hunted by the sinister Venger and the terrifying 5-headed dragon, Tiamat. What set Dungeons & Dragons apart was its tone. It didn't talk down to kids, it trusted them. The characters faced moral choices, fear, sacrifice, and even doubt. Each episode balanced action with introspection, and the dialogue carried surprising weight. The villains weren't one note, and even Venger had layers of tragedy behind his evil. Despite huge fan love and strong ratings, CBS abruptly canceled it, leaving the series on a cliffhanger. The unproduced final episode, Requiem, was scripted but never animated, becoming one of the great what-ifs of 80s animation. Even now, fans create fan-made endings, hoping to give the heroes the closure they deserved. Dungeons & Dragons remains one of the finest examples of emotional storytelling in Saturday morning history. It didn't just roll the dice, it redefined what a fantasy cartoon could be. Mighty Max, 1993 to 1994. Technically, from the early 90s, Mighty Max carried the spirit of the 80s so powerfully that it earns its place here. It was dark, thrilling, and far deeper than anyone expected from a show aimed at kids. The story followed Max, a quick-witted teenager who receives a mysterious red cap in the mail, one that turns out to be a key to interdimensional portals. Guided by the wise owl-like Virgil and the massive bodyguard Norman, Max travels the globe battling ancient evils, led by the terrifying Skullmaster. What made Mighty Max stand out was its tone. It wasn't afraid to be intense. The villains were truly menacing, the stakes genuinely high, and the writing had a maturity rare for its time. The show mixed mythology, science fiction, and mystery into one seamless adventure, with episodes set everywhere from Atlantis to the Arctic. The animation was crisp, the pacing electric, and the themes surprisingly existential. It was, in many ways, the thinking viewer's adventure cartoon. But despite strong reviews, the show ended abruptly after just 2 seasons, leaving fans yearning for closure after its surprisingly emotional finale. It might have been designed to sell toys, but Mighty Max became so much more a thrilling journey through courage, destiny, and growing up faster than you ever wanted to. For those who watched it, it still echoes like a legend cut short. Pole Position, 1984. Speed, mystery, and a talking car. What could go wrong? Pole Position was a wild blend of racing and espionage that felt like Knight Rider crossed with Speed Racer. It was sleek, fast, and full of personality, but sadly, it never crossed the finish line it deserved. Produced by DIC Entertainment, the show followed siblings Dan and Tess Darrett, stunt drivers who doubled as secret agents for a mysterious government organization. Their futuristic cars, Wheels and Rhodey, weren't just vehicles. They were intelligent partners equipped with all sorts of hidden gadgets. Each episode threw them into high-speed chases, daring rescues, and elaborate schemes, often involving crooks or corporate villains with cartoonish charm. The animation, handled by Japanese studios, was fluid and stylish, full of bright 80s color and futuristic shine. The theme song, catchy enough to live rent-free in your head, set the tone for the adrenaline rush that followed. But Pole Position faced tough competition in a market saturated with action cartoons. Only 13 episodes were produced before it was taken off the air. Still, its mix of sleek design, family teamwork, and racing flair made it a cult favorite among die-hard fans. It was over before the race even began, but what a ride while it lasted. The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers, 1986 to 1989. Before space cowboys were cool, the Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers galloped into the stars and redefined sci-fi storytelling for television. It was a blend of Western grit, cyberpunk energy, and classic heroics, and it looked incredible. Set in the 22nd century, the series followed the Galaxy Rangers, a team of enhanced law enforcers protecting human colonies and alien civilizations across the frontier of space. Each member had a unique bioengineered ability. Zachary Fox had a mechanical arm powered by will, Shane Gooseman could morph his body to survive attacks, and Nico wielded telepathic energy. What made this show special was its cinematic scope. Produced in the United States but animated in Japan, it had a distinct anime feel long before anime was mainstream in the West. The storylines were more mature than typical Saturday fare, exploring loyalty, sacrifice, and justice without ever losing its sense of fun. The soundtrack rocked hard. Literally, it featured original rock ballads that gave the show an edge like no other cartoon at the time. Despite a passionate fan base and top-tier animation, it suffered from poor marketing and limited syndication, ending after 65 episodes. Galaxy Rangers was ambitious, smart, and decades ahead of its time, a show that proved Westerns could thrive among the stars. They didn't just patrol space, they ruled it, if only for a little while. The Mysterious Cities of Gold, 1982. Few animated shows ever reached the emotional and visual heights of The Mysterious Cities of Gold. A French-Japanese masterpiece, it followed the journey of Esteban, a Spanish boy in the 16th century who joins an expedition to the New World to search for his missing father and the legendary golden cities of the Americas. Along the way, he's joined by the adventurous Zia and the clever Tao, and together they uncover ancient civilizations, mysterious technology, and truths that blend history with legend. What made this show groundbreaking was its tone. It treated young viewers like adults, weaving real historical elements into its fiction. Each episode even ended with a short educational segment explaining the real-world history that inspired the story. The animation was stunning, with lush landscapes, detailed architecture, and a sense of wonder in every frame. The haunting theme song and emotional storytelling made it unforgettable. But the show's production was expensive, and after 39 episodes, it was quietly concluded, though fans continued to lobby for its return for decades. Decades later, sequels were made, but the magic of that first series remains untouchable. Mysterious Cities of Gold wasn't just a cartoon, it was a journey across cultures, imagination, and the human spirit. Some shows end. This one lingers in your heart forever. Jace and the Wheeled Warriors, 1985 to 1986. Few toy-based cartoons ever dared to aim for greatness, but Jace and the Wheeled Warriors almost reached it. Created to promote a toy line by Mattel, it quickly transcended its commercial roots to become one of the most creative space adventures of the 80s. The story followed Jace, a young hero searching for his missing father, Audric, across the galaxy. His quest to stop the evil monster minds, sentient plant-like creatures bent on domination. With a team of unforgettable allies, the wizard Gillian, the warrior Herc, and the android Oon, Jace piloted the Lightning League's high-tech vehicles in a fight for freedom. Unlike many cartoons of the era, Jace and the Wheeled Warriors was surprisingly sophisticated. Its story arcs had emotional weight, the dialogue carried heart, and the visuals produced by Japan's Sunrise Studios were dazzling. The villains were creepy, the heroes earnest, and the world felt vast and unpredictable. Unfortunately, it was doomed by one fatal flaw: no ending. The series concluded abruptly after 65 episodes without resolving Jace's search for his father. Fans were left wondering, theorizing, and wishing for decades. Even so, its legacy endured through its incredible theme song and visionary design. If the 80s taught us anything, it's that great stories don't need closure, they just need heart. Jace and the Wheeled Warriors had plenty, so there they are, 15 cartoons that didn't just entertain, but expanded what animation could be. They were ambitious, imaginative, and gone far too soon. Yet, even decades later, fans still remember them like old friends. Which one deserves a revival? Which one did you grow up watching? Drop your thoughts below, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep these lost legends alive. Because nostalgia this powerful never truly fades, it just waits to be rediscovered.